Prepper basics. Preppers and securing our houses of worship. This is Throttle Up Prepper. Prepper basics. Preppers and securing our houses of worship. Hello and what's up? Hey, it's Jeff, your humble host. This is Throttle Up Prepper. If you haven't visited our website lately, you're cordially invited to do so. ThrottleUpPrepper.com. The address is at the bottom for those of you who need the visual component. Also, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? We're closing in on 100, baby. That's my 100 dance. Wait till you see what happens when it actually happens. Just kidding. Don't be afraid. But listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We would love to have you. And for those of you who have subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it's a big one. So it's... Anyway, thanks. Listen, today, to be serious, I feel like my eyes are watering here. I'm not crying and I'm not weirding out or anything. Touching moment. But seriously, I woke up to some bad news today. As I'm recording this, it's about 10:20 in the morning, Eastern time on the 9th of April. This will actually post tomorrow morning. On the 10th, so it'll be day-old news by then. But woke up to some terrible news this morning, and you likely have already heard. I heard from the Jerusalem Post, CNN, Fox, and some other news outlets that I get alerts from that it's a bad day for churchgoers in Egypt. There is apparently two separate incidents where bombings took place. Last I heard, there was at least 27 confirmed dead, I believe, at this point at Palm Sunday services there at what I presume to be Coptic Christian congregations. I'm not 100% sure. But it got me to thinking, as I was getting ready to record, I decided to switch things up here last minute. And, you know, thank God for the most part, we're not seeing this here in this country yet, I say. Not because I'm a pessimist, but because I'm a realist. And, you know, it's kind of a matter of time, I believe. And, you know, what better prepper topic at a timely moment such as this, as we are heading into the high holy days, not only for Christian believers, but for the Jews as well. At sundown tomorrow on the 10th, I believe, is the start of Pesach or Passover, and starts the spring feast days, which I believe go through the 29th of May. Culminating in Shavuot, or what the Christians call Pentecost. That's another lesson for another time. But, you know, it seems to me that, you know, terrorists are kind of opportunists in a sense that they look not only for opportunity, but they also look for kind of shock and awe value. So if they're going to strike, you know, it seems to me times such as these present a more tempting target to them. So what are we talking about? Securing our houses of worship. Look, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you are some other faith, let's face it, if you're anything other than what the terrorists happen to be and believe, even within their religion, you get different sects that fight each other and want to kill each other. It seems to me that it is wise for us to have a plan for that as well, because not all preppers are religious folks, but we have in general been accused of clinging to, what is it, our God and our guns? Something like that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm clinging to both. Of course, the one more than the other. Obviously, the gun will run out of ammo, but God's always there in my estimation. So I put him number one. But listen, the reality is, a church congregation, everyone for the most part is sitting and focused on the music, focused on what's being said. Generally, everyone's facing the same way, with the exception of the rabbi or the pastor or priest, and maybe a couple of others. So it's kind of a captive, potential, just target-rich environment. And now, listen, obviously, the one ultimately responsible for the security at your place of worship is the leadership there, the pastor, the rabbi, the priest, the board. But if I were you and I was attending a place of worship, I would be asking questions, especially if you're not already in the know. I would ask, hey, you don't have to tell me the details, but do we have security? I know there's a synagogue here in town that, especially on the high holy days, they have visible police presence, police cars and police officers in uniform on duty. Otherwise, many of their congregants won't come. They don't feel safe, and that's sad. And listen, I'll also say this: if you're in a state where concealed carry is allowed, and you might argue with this, but out of propriety's sake, and because I am part of congregational leadership in my congregation, it would be wise to let your leadership know that you carry. A number of reasons. Number one, it's the responsibility of the pastor or the rabbi or the priest to take care of the congregation. They have to know who's there, what their background is, who the people with the sketchy past happens to be, to protect the children, and yeah, you might be legally carrying, but it's still a good idea to let them know. Number one, if they do have any objections, you can discuss it. Maybe that's not the place for you where you fit in. Maybe you need to go someplace else where that's welcome. Maybe they need to know because, hey, thank God, maybe they've been praying for more certified and qualified individuals. Maybe you might become part of the security team. If they already have a security team in place and you're part of it, and make sure you guys are doing drills. We had local police lieutenant come in and do an active shooter class for our leadership, and it seems like most of our congregation is not only armed but armed to the teeth. Slight exaggeration, but yeah, we're in a state that it seems like everybody's carrying nowadays. And it's good. It's good for us to know who we can count on. We have a plan in place. We have people, our ushers, our elders, that are keeping an eye on the doors during service, who's coming in, who's going out. At a certain time, we lock our doors. That doesn't mean that, if you're late to service, you can't come in. It means you got to knock, and there's an elder or somebody out there that, will hear you and can let you in. And, it's sad. It's pathetic, actually, that we live at such a day and time that this has to be a concern. But it's in the news headlines. It's not fear-mongering. It's being safe. It's being wise as serpents, as the word says. But we also should be gentle as doves until provoked. That's another story. So, I just encourage you today to, pray for the victims and the families. I can't imagine something like that occurring in our congregation. And I'm sure you couldn't imagine it happening in yours. And the toll and that it would take on you and everyone who witnessed such a horrible atrocity. So keep the victims and their families in your prayers, and also pray for mercy that it never happens here at your congregation or any future congregation you might be part of. And even if you're not a church-going person, Do you really want to live in a community where the local synagogue gets bombed? Where the local church has a shooting? Where any religion, any place of worship, peaceful gathering is attacked? I don't think so. I don't want to live in a community like that. I don't want that to happen here. So pray. Be aware. Be armed. Be up to date. Be trained. Be skillful with what you're able to do legally. And make sure you communicate that with the church leadership. And again, if you find out your church is one of those churches that doesn't believe in being armed, that they perhaps misinterpret Scripture, that we are to turn the other cheek and we're not supposed to live by the sword is to die by the sword. Understand that that's a misinterpretation. By the way, just free little food for thought. All of the disciples were carrying the weapon of the day. They all had swords at their side for protection. And they were never told before to stop it. Peter had hatred in his heart toward the Romans and jumped at the opportunity to lash out with violence. That's what Jesus was talking about. That's what the Messiah was instructing on, not whether or not you should protect yourself. Matter of fact, here's another little insight that I learned from a rabbi friend of mine, that within Judaism, it's always been the case that they're not only expected to protect themselves, but they have a duty to defend themselves and their families. So listen, enough of that. Whatever the case is, if you're in a place that doesn't believe in it, that's fine. You don't need to go to war with them. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to fuss with them. You don't need to, break the rules and carry anyway. Just find another place that respects you enough and loves you enough to have a plan. Listen, we hope and pray, like I said, that this never happens here and it's never an issue. But come what may, it's time for all of us to get prepared. Stay ready and vigilant. Be safe, and God bless.